Chamber conference call. My name is PJ Prunty. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Danbury Chamber of Commerce. It is the Chamber's vision to create a weekly, bi-weekly, or as needed conference call to keep the businesses in the Greater Danbury area informed of what clearly is daily, if not hourly, developments regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to thank our guest speakers for carving time out of their increasingly chaotic schedules to provide some insights and updates pertaining to the virus itself, as we hear from the city's health department, along with the resources and action items that have been rolling out from both the Small Business Administration, along with the state of Connecticut and the Department of Economic and Community Development. At this time, I'd like to welcome the mayor of the city of Danbury to offer a few words and give an update from the city's perspective. Mayor, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, BJ, and thanks for leading this conference call. So I'm here with Lisa Marcy, our Director of Health, along with Roger Colanzo, who does a lot of economic development work for the city of Danbury, and also Mark Dillon, who does a lot of public policy work, and then Taylor O'Brien, who is our Director of Donations for the city of Danbury. So basically, we are fully stood up. Our EOC is fully operational. We're working on a number of small issues and much larger issues with our partners of Danbury Hospital, Western Connecticut State University, the state of Connecticut, and the federal government, along with the Department of Homeland Security. We think that we are doing as good a job as you can, given the parameters that we're allowed to operate in. There has been a lot of confusion, and we're fully aware of this, related to what's essential, what's not essential, what's exempt, what's not exempt in terms of the governor's orders. I mean, a lot of times we can't give you that answer. You really have to go read the order or contact David Lehman from the Department of Economic and Community Development. His team will be able to help you work your way through that. We understand the frustration. We'd like to give you, a straight, clear answer to that, but generally it's difficult for us to do. But we do try to respond to everybody that has concerns and escalate them upward if we can, and elevate them upward. Right now, everybody is basically, as you all know, in a pause holding pattern. Essentially, many businesses are still open, many are not. I think the larger issue for any person in business right now that is trying to do business right now has to do with the just the fear that people have of going out, of intermingling. And as Lisa will explain, that fear is warranted in many cases, but people are also figuring out ways to do business in this increasingly difficult environment. City of Danbury is here to work with you, to be your partner, to do whatever we can to try to keep you in business while we work our way through this. But we know it's tough and it's difficult, and we don't have a lot of answers to things like the new legislation that's just been passed and those kinds of things. But we did want to sit with PJ for a minute and just share with the chamber. We're concerned as you're concerned. We all want to get back to work as soon as possible. The best way to do that is to follow the guidelines and the guidance given by us, the state of Connecticut, by our Director of Health. And if we can do that, the quicker, the better, we can all reopen our businesses and start doing business again. So thank you for all you do for our city. It is so greatly appreciated. And with that, I'm going to pitch it back over to PJ.
Excellent.
And he can roll with it. But once again, thank you for all being on this call.
Mayor, appreciate taking time and your continued support of the business, as well as frequenting a lot of the restaurants in our area with their curbside commerce. That's tremendous. Thanks for that support. At this time, I'd like to welcome to the call the Director of Health and Human Services for the City of Danbury, Lisa Marcy, to provide an update from the Health Department. Lisa, thank you.
Hi there. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I appreciate you all tuning in to listen to our update and to hear what we've been working on. So our inspectors have been out and trying to provide a lot of guidance to a lot of the concerned business owners. We've been getting a lot of questions about, is my business still allowed to open? What are the parameters that we can open under? How does this to-go work? My favorite question is, if we wanted to do to-go, can it just be alcohol only, mixed cocktails? And the answer to that, if you were wondering on this call, the answer is no. You actually have to do that with food. We've been hearing from a lot of the healthcare and health businesses that are members of the Chamber of Commerce that they too, in addition to the hospital, have been experiencing shortages on PPE, in particular masks and gowns and gloves. And we have been working with the state to try to get more resources on that. We're also working with United Way to collect PPE that we can distribute to all of the private organizations that are not associated with the hospital that are looking for additional PPE. So we are working on that. If you do find yourself in shortage of PPE, please contact our office. The email address that you can reach us at is health, DEPT, at danbury-ct.gov. And I know that PJ can also send out that contact information after the call. Please let us know what your needs are. If you are in search of guidance because you're uncertain as to how long employees should be staying out, if they've been notified that they're quarantined or that they have an exposure, please reach out to us. Those are things that we can assist with. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. We truly appreciate the time, dedication, both you, your staff, and your volunteers are putting into this crisis. Much appreciated. Next up, I'd like to welcome to the call the Commissioner of the Department of Economic and Community Development, David Lehman, to offer an update from the state of Connecticut, who I am sure would be happy to provide us with an update on the very recent announcement of the bridge loan program, along with the other initiatives the state is working on. David, thanks again for carving out some time. I greatly appreciate it. The floor is yours.
PJ, thank you, and Mayor, thank you too. Appreciate you guys having me. I will try to be concise and brief and not overstay my welcome here on the Danbury call, but I'm happy to take any questions after this. Before I touch on the bridge program, just on the Mayor's point about essential versus non-essential, we did put guidance up on Sunday night. We tried to make it as clear as possible and plain English as possible. There is an exemption request process on the DECD website. If it's not clear to folks on the phone and you haven't already requested an exemption or a request for clarification, you may do so. You know, we've had close to 1,000 requests from businesses across the state, so please go to the DECD site and request an exemption. You know, just on this point though, I want to make sure everyone is aware. You know, this list and the various measures that the governor is taking to make sure that, you know, public health continues to be the #1 focus, it's going to be fluid. So we will certainly let folks know as and when there are changes to these guidelines, and not necessarily just to what's quote unquote essential versus non-essential, but other best practices as folks go about their daily lives. Obviously, we want folks to stay home where at all possible, and it's critical that employers have their employees working from home where possible. We realize that's not possible in every instance, and we want to make sure that everyone is safe and that best practices are used. So there will be more to come on that from the governor, but if there's any questions, please go to the DECD website or you can shoot me an email. On the loan program, just a quick note on this, and I really want to spend some time on the federal bill that the mayor alluded to as well. Last night, we at DECD rolled out a website for applications for what we're calling the Connecticut Recovery Bridge Program. These are 0% interest loans for up to 18 months of term. The loans are going to be sized at 3 months operating expenses capped at $75,000. It's meant to be for businesses and nonprofits up to 100 employees. So we are really focusing on you know, those types of businesses in the state. Excuse me. Whereas the SBA program, we realize, has up to 500 employees as part of it. So this is meant to be a bit more targeted, and it's something that we've seen pretty significant response rates so far. So we've seen over 500 applications, and we expect there to be a significant demand for this. It's really meant to offer flexibility and liquidity to businesses. It's not meant to be a grant, it's not forgivable, but it's meant to be a tool in the toolbox for businesses right now as we realize liquidity is dear and there's been a lot of revenue drop off. The reason we're calling it a bridge is we expect repayment for this loan to come from a couple different sources potentially, one of which is this large federal program which is being rolled out. And this is the $350 billion payment protection program, which is also known as the Rubio-Collins Amendment in DC. And the $350 billion, the way that will work is those will be loans initially, but they will convert to grants to the extent businesses maintain payroll for 8 weeks, retroactive to February 15th. So for businesses that laid their employees off, they'll need to rehire those employees. The federal government will lend you through a Connecticut bank or through a Connecticut lender money to make payroll for that 2-month period. And then if you comply with that, the loan basically is forgiven at the end of those 2 months and becomes a grant. So that is, you know, significant. We're doing $25 million in the Connecticut Bridge Program, but this is $350 billion. And if you just use kind of a 1% metric, high level, we're 1% of the country's population as well as its GDP, that's roughly $3.5 billion that we should be seeing in Connecticut. So more details are coming on that, but in terms of direct financial assistance to small businesses, that is going to be the most significant thing, in addition to expanded unemployment insurance, which is certainly coming from the same stimulus bill, in addition to the paid family leave, paid sick leave from the emergency order number 2. And then lastly, I think folks are aware there's going to be direct payments to individuals below a certain income threshold as part of the stimulus bill. So details I realize are important, and timing in terms of when this money is coming is even more important given how critical the situation is. We're following it every day, and we're in contact with our DC delegation on a regular basis. So it's certainly good news, but we realize that this money needs to come quickly. It can't be money that's coming several months out. So more details on that, but the $2 trillion stimulus we think is very significant in the state. Just a few other points, if I may. I touched on unemployment insurance as it relates to the third emergency bill and the family and sick leave in the second emergency bill. I want to be really clear with this group, and we were on a couple other calls earlier this week as well on the same. Unemployment benefits, that is the first order, the first line of defense at the state level. We've seen over the past 2 weeks, I think approximately 140,000 applications for unemployment benefits. We're processing them as quickly as we possibly can. The economy basically stopped in many areas, but unemployment benefits, we're really trying to make sure, in conjunction with our federal partners, that as many people can qualify for these benefits. And I think this bill that's working its way through the Congress today hopefully makes it very clear, including folks that typically would not have been part of the unemployment benefit net. So Connecticut Department of Labor is going to have more on that. There certainly is a backlog that we're working through, just given the capacity, but making sure everyone can, as many people as possible can get unemployment benefits is a critical response for us at the state level. The other thing that we've been very focused on at the state level is broadly what we're calling payment relief and forbearance. So we've done it with our loan portfolios. We're encouraging lenders to do it, landlords to do it. Obviously, it's tricky. A lot of these are private contracts. But to the extent that folks can delay payments, defer payments to the future, when we hopefully have a normal economy sooner rather than later here. But that is something that is encouraged. Again, we're trying to lead by example. 3-month payment holidays, forbearance periods. We understand the pressure, liquidity pressure that is on many businesses. So we encourage folks to continue to work with their various suppliers and landlords and lenders on that as they navigate the crisis. In addition, tax relief has been a big focus. So we have extended for the pass-through entity tax as well as the corporation income tax, and now also for individual income tax. We have adopted the federal payment date for the individual tax, which is July 15th as opposed to April, so a 3-month delay there, as well as June 15th for the corporate income taxes. So that's roughly a 3-month delay there versus when that pass-through entity tax was in place. So where we can provide effectively a zero interest loan, a short-term loan, we're trying to do so. We have had several requests requesting sales tax extensions. That's not something that we've done at this point, but we're continuing to go through all the options in terms of what other tools are in the toolbox that we can do. But on the income tax side, all of that should be in place as it relates to delaying those payments. Just a few more things. Utility costs. So there has been, and there is a moratorium on any utility shutoffs, both residential as well as commercial and business right now. In addition, there are petitions to basically limit, and I know some utility companies have already done this, but to eliminate late fees and other penalties that may be on these bills. So more to come on that, we hope, but we're trying to provide as much relief as possible on that. Last point I would just mention is what we're calling temporary regulatory relief. So there's been a lot of requests, for example, for restaurants to be able to sell alcohol with food for takeout. That's something that we've done. We understand how difficult it is for restaurants right now, but where there are regulatory relief, restrictions that are in place that are limiting your ability to do business in this unique operating environment, make sure that we hear those. We're doing a lot of those by executive order. Again, the goal is to provide as much flexibility to business as we can, still keeping public health, front and center, but understanding that the conventional way that our economy works and people did business, that is absolutely changed. So PJ, I'll stop with that, and I'm happy to stick around till the end for questions.
Excellent, David. Thank you very much. Again, we appreciate the commitment and dedication to the businesses here in our state to assist them during these challenging times. Great input, and actually answered a lot of the questions that were already submitted prior to the call. So thank you for that. At this point, we welcome Joe Ercolano, the State Director of the Connecticut Small Business Center, to give us some insight into the SBA's effort to assist businesses impacted by COVID-19. Joe, thanks for taking time. The floor is yours, my friend. Hey, Joe, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Kept trying to raise my hand. It wasn't working. Okay. Thank you all. And thank you, PJ, for inviting the Small Business Development Center. Thank you, Commissioner, for all your support and leadership on this important issue, crisis facing our state. I'm trying to speak today a little bit for the SBA. We're not SBA. We don't control the funds. We don't control the loan process, but we can help. We can help you if you're interested in applying for an SBA loan, either currently or when new resources come out in the next few weeks. We're here to help you do that. So let me just walk through quickly what's available now. The principal loan program out for coronavirus is the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL. That application is done online. You can submit a paper application. It's much better to do it online, except that you can imagine with all the volume that SBA is experiencing nationwide, the site does have its moments when it's not available or it's just backed up because of volume. Be patient, stay with it. You can go back at any time and complete an application if it's not complete. This loan is different than most other SBA disaster loans in that it is a working capital loan, and it also does not require physical damage, obviously. So it'll be scored and looked at differently than other SBA disaster loans. You can't go to a bank to access this loan. You have to go directly to SBA. You have no obligation to take the loan if you're offered the loan. The rates are 3.75 for businesses, 2.75% for eligible nonprofits, and you can borrow up to $2 million through this program. There's a lot of money put aside for this program, but it's not so much how much money will be left by the time you might get your application through. It's just a question of how much time it'll and whether your application is complete. So we're hearing that the major reasons for declines in our state and in most states is from incomplete applications and from low credit scores. One of the things to keep in mind is that this is a loan, so the SBA will be looking at your credit score, your ability to repay the loan, and the collateral you might pledge. You are required to pledge something if you borrow over $25,000. If you borrow less than that, you don't really have to pledge any collateral. But SBA will not decline a loan for lack of collateral. So you would need to just consider what assets you might pledge or be able to put in the terms of collateral. And SBA may still come back and say, okay, not typically acceptable, but we're going to show some leniency here. We don't know what number works for SBA, just like we don't know what credit score works for SBA. So basically, our instructions from SBA are to encourage everyone to apply and see how SBA looks at your application and what you're pledging and what your ability to repay looks like. You also will keep in mind that you won't put in an amount of money that you're looking to borrow. You'll submit a form that indicates your losses for a current period, and there you can project as far out as 3 months. And the SBA will then look back historically at the same 3-month period, 1, 2, potentially even 3 years back, depending on how many years of income you can indicate in statements for tax returns. and that will determine that your ability to repay based on all those factors, past revenue, past ability to repay based on assets, and your credit score all combined. It's a formula that I'm sure all those of you who have been through a loan before understand how banks could arrive at a number. So it's not very different than that, except, again, SBA is telling us they will show leniency. So be prepared to submit your tax information, your completed copies of your income tax form return, your a schedule of liabilities, and a projection of loss. And some other documents as well, which is all indicated on the online application process. You'll need to write a little narrative to explain your losses so it's clear, and that gives you an opportunity to explain your situation other than just letting the numbers speak for them or for yourself. We're told you can also, if your credit score is not as high as SBA might be looking for, and right now, without being official in any way, if you're looking at anything lower than 560 credit score, you probably will want to write an explanation of why your credit score is where it is today. Again, nobody can guarantee what SBA's decision will be, but they might reach out and ask for a conversation with you to understand a little bit better about your credit background and your ability to repay. All of which I think demonstrates a pretty strong interest on the part of SBA to make this work and not to just create a difficult to accomplish loan process. Again, they're trying their best to keep up with the volume and keep up with the processing. So we're here to help. We can help with helping you pull together your projected losses, helping you write your narrative if you want to try to write an explanation of loss, as well as presenting your credit score and your ability to repay, and also to give you some thoughts about other options. If this loan is turned down, or if you're not comfortable or interested in applying for this loan, as the commissioner alluded to, there will be a lot more coming in the weeks ahead, hopefully not too many weeks. But again, there's procedural and steps that have to be taken to get the money out the door in Washington. And then, of course, there's the administration side of it. Banks need instruction, SBA needs instruction, etc. It's all in the works. It's not like people are sitting back waiting for the floodgates to open and then they'll deal with it. But there will be a little bit of a delay. So, bear that in mind. Talk to us or talk to your accountant or talk to anybody you want to who can help you think through what may be your best bet. And in some cases, it's just going to be the fastest money you can get your hands on. We understand that. So this loan, this EIDL loan may be an option. There will be the forgivable loan, most likely. So that's certainly attractive. And you can also apply for both. If you apply for the EIDL and you're accepted and you decide to take the loan, you can also apply for other financial assistance, and SBA will probably consider that as partial payment towards this loan, allow you to pay it down, or allow you to put some kind of a combination of the two together that makes sense for you. So, if you decide to go after the EIDL, we're being told that that won't preclude you from going after anything else in the weeks ahead. And you could try to access whatever you can and get the best deal that works for you and best situation for you in terms of interest rate, grant versus loan versus pay period. And we'll also add on the EIDL, we're told that SBA will consider a deferment of payment for up to 12 months on interest, and they'll work that into the balance of your loan payments going forward. So you're not off the hook for that interest for that period. You just don't have to pay it immediately. And I think it's a case-by-case basis whether they'll give you a 4-month deferral, a 6-month deferral, or a 12-month deferral. But that deferral is helpful, obviously, because it does minimize cash flow. In addition to helping with the application, explaining financial options, working on other kinds of loan applications that might be coming out, we can help you think through your cash plan, your cash budget, your cash management plan, and some other things that will position you to not just get through the next couple of months that are going to be the toughest, but to think about what life looks like for your business after this ends. And when things kind of return to normal, what does normal look like? It may not be the normal we're used to for some of you at all, or it may be that it's longer to get there. Well, our advisors can help you think through business models, business strategies, and ways to pivot and move in a different direction if necessary. So we're at www.ctsbdc.com. We have a online resource center for COVID-19, which includes information on the DECD bridge loan that just made available last night, and information on the SBA EIDL loan, and other information as it comes available will be up there. We're going to wait for official word, if you will, from SBA and other federal agencies before we publish anything, because we want to give you accurate, useful information that you can act on and not create confusion. But it will take some time to make sure we've got the process worked out in terms of being able to explain that to you and get it up on our website. As we get it, we'll get it up, but it will take some time for that to happen. But do check in as frequently as you can to ctsbdc.com for updates on whatever is coming out of Washington in terms of the actual programs and the loans that might be coming. So that's all I have. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you, PJ.
Joe, thank you again. I appreciate taking time and making your team available to assist businesses navigate the SBA loan process, along with providing a wealth of information. And as many of the individuals on the call are aware, Nelson Mershon is a great resource here in the greater Danbury area, and we're happy to connect the businesses to them. So at this time, I'd like to ask our guests some of the questions that we received from the businesses prior to our call. So the first one's coming from the hospitality industry, specifically catering venues. And David, this might be directed towards you. Is there any economic relief or stimulus package specific to this industry that is in the works from the state? And if so, what is the projected timeline for said relief, and what does that potentially look like? Hey, David, you there? David, I think you might have your phone on mute. We can't hear you. I think we might have lost you there, David. All right, we'll move to the next question here. This one's sort of specific to the health department. Coming in from a restaurant here. Can COVID-19 be spread through food, including refrigerated or frozen foods?
At this time, we do not believe that COVID-19 can be spread through food. However, please keep in mind that we can spread COVID-19 through surfaces. So while it's not a foodborne illness, if we do have people sneezing or coughing over food, or they are using improper hygiene and covering their cough with their hands, that is of concern. So it's very important that we make sure that we address proper food protection to make sure that foods are covered at all times and that we're addressing proper hand hygiene. But no, it is not a foodborne illness.
Okay, great, thank you. And then the next question relevant to the health department. The drive-through testing at Danbury Hospital. What has been the average turnaround time for getting results back for COVID-19?
Sure. So when they initially started, they were working with a different laboratory, and lab results were taking a little bit longer. I would say this week we've been getting turnarounds within 24 to 36 hours. So it's been really fast. It really is as fast as the laboratory that's processing it can get the results back, but we've been turning that around pretty quickly.
Hey, Joe, I think you might have your phone on. There you go. Yep, great. Thank you. David, have you joined us again?
Yeah, David's here. Sorry about that. I had a call from the boss. I had to hop off.
I completely understand. So I'm sorry if you missed that, the first question. It was coming from the hospitality industry, specifically catering venues. Is there any economic relief or stimulus package specific to this particular industry that is in the works from the state? And if so, what is projected timeline for that?
Not specifically for that industry from the state at that point in time. You know, we've started having discussions, and obviously that led to this lending program. But there will be more discussions, is my expectation, especially as we understand the details of the third and then potentially the fourth phase of the federal response. You know, where and how the state should best complement that in addressing specific industries. So if there are, I've gotten a lot of asks if there are ideas that you think we should be aware of. Please feel free to send them my way as it relates to specifics around financing, tax, etc., and we're happy to explore.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. This next question comes from a small business here in Danbury. Normally, self-employed owners of business cannot receive unemployment. In this particular situation we're facing, can they qualify for unemployment benefits?
So it's David again. I'm not sure if that was directed to me, if there's someone else who's better suited to answer on the call. I think the answer is maybe, and I'm not an expert on UI. I believe the federal program, as I read it, will include the gig economy and sole practitioners, but I'm not exactly sure, and it's not clear candidly how that'll work with the state program. Traditionally, the state program has not allowed it, so that's why the maybe answer. But more details are coming on this. I would encourage folks to reach out to the Connecticut Department of Labor for their specific situation to get a better read.
Okay, appreciate it. And then probably relevant to that same question here, we've got someone coming in saying, should they be laying off their employees in order for them to get unemployment benefits? I guess
listen, it depends on the business circumstance, but certainly, one thing that we have done with the Department of Labor is we've enabled folks to be furloughed effectively and waived the job search requirement for those employees to get unemployment benefits. So to the extent that the business conditions warrant it, we would encourage employers not to hesitate on that front, because that's what the system is used for, and we're trying to be as expansive as possible for folks to get unemployment benefits. And then as we read the federal legislation, it looks like there is a true up or an incremental amount of money that the feds are going to be kicking in beyond the traditional benefits to make employees potentially whole or very close to whole for their wages.
I appreciate that. I know we touched a little bit on your earlier comments about the unemployment benefits and then payment relief. There's been talk of mandating insurance companies to retroactively provide business loss insurance. Is this still a possibility, and do you have any kind of policies to? Okay.
No, it's not. I mean, and I get this question a lot, just to be frank. So business interruption insurance in particular, unless there's a very unique policy that was kind of all risk, including pandemics, those policies are very specific, and they're priced not to include these types of catastrophes, economic catastrophes. So the traditional business interruption insurance, would not qualify. But I'd expect after we're on the other side of this crisis, there will be similar to what you saw post 9/11 with terrorism reinsurance, where the government, the federal government, most likely will do a pandemic reinsurance type structure, where the government basically takes the catastrophic risk from insurers in a reinsurance capacity. But unfortunately, that's next time, and I don't think that's going to save this time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then there's been some questions and conversations about specific loan and grant programs for not-for-profit agencies, or will they be treated as businesses?
In what we're doing, it's in the Connecticut Recovery Bridge, nonprofits and small businesses are both eligible, again, sub 100 employees. And for, I think Joe may have mentioned it before, but for the SBA Emergency Assistance Program, nonprofits are also eligible. So we're trying to be, again, as expansive as possible, including sole practitioners and proprietorships.
I just got another question here in regards to UI. Does the state will they postpone UI penalty from employers who had to close? Do you guys have any sort of insight into that currently?
I don't have a definitive answer. We understand the request, and we need to take it up with the labor folks. Yeah, I'm a proponent of it, but ultimately there's going to be other factors at play there.
Sure, I appreciate that. Thank you. And then Last one here, and then just sort of be time conscious here. Once the sort of federal stimulus package finally approved and starts to move down the pipe, what is Connecticut's involvement, if any, in the distribution of these funds to small businesses? Do you have any expectations on that? That could either be David or Joe to put some insight.
I'm not sure I followed the question, PJ. Could you repeat it? You said, how is the money going to actually flow into small businesses?
Yeah, the question was, what is Connecticut's involvement, if any, in the distribution of some of these funds that we're going to be seeing through the federal government, or is it just
Well,
direct?
No, so the federal government, they're going to use either it's going to be directly, I think Joe mentioned before, you're applying to the SBA and the money's going to come from the federal government. But the Rubens Collins 350 billion, that money is going to be through existing SBA lenders or new lenders. So primarily Connecticut banks. That's going to be the mechanism with which the Treasury basically gets that money, that grant money to our small businesses. So if I'm a business in Danbury, I'm going to go to my local bank that I would typically go for an SBA loan, and they're the ones who are going to be able to access that federal money, that federal grant money.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Thank you. So I know everyone's time is very valuable. So we'll sort of end the conversation here for today's conference call. I'd like to thank everyone who joined this afternoon, along with our guest speakers. We appreciate your time and continued effort. And for those that are still on the call, please know that the Greater Danbury Chamber of Commerce, we're here for the businesses in our community. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us via email or phone. We'll be here for you. My office phone is directed to my cell phone now, so you can get a hold of me 24/7, 203-743-5565. Again, our plan is to conduct these conferences calls either weekly or bi-weekly, so please keep your eyes open for updated information. Thank you again, everyone. Appreciate your time, and stay well.
Thanks, PJ.